Hey guys, I'm Mike. Welcome back to our Porsche restoration project. In this video, or the next couple of videos, what we're going to attempt to do is close up everything in the trunk bay area. Quite a few parts and pieces, a lot of plug-ins underneath the dashboard in the trunk bay. Also, we're going to be working underneath the dash in the cockpit, tightening up our ignition assembly, some of our switches, and also you can see I've got quite a spread of parts here on the bench. Windshield wiper system. We're going to be installing that, breaking that down piece by piece, and hopefully explaining all of this. A little bit more complicated than our engine bay area. Quite a few more parts than our engine bay area, believe it or not. If you have replaced the front pan of your car, this video and the next video might be very helpful for you, as there are some areas that will really need to be straightened out and very precise to make everything work out. So let's just do a quick overview, show you what I have here on the bench to get started with. We'll start with the smuggler's box lid, and then once we get through that, we'll go ahead and start putting some of these parts on the car. All right, let's just take a quick look at some of the parts I have laid out here on the bench to get started with. First, we're going to install our smuggler's box lid there, give us some surface area to work off of. Also, fresh air plenum and switch assembly. This guy here, real complicated to put together and get working properly. Here's a flap that goes with that. This is a real difficult system. I've had this in and out probably 5 times already, so hopefully put it in for the 6th time, it should be a little bit smoother, a little bit easier. We're going to do our switches. These have all been reconditioned, lubricated, and cleaned up, ready to install. We have our windshield wiper motor assembly here. I've got that broken down partially. We're going to replace some of the rubber bushings and do a partial assembly here, although most of it's been reconditioned already. We'll take a look at that here in a second. Also, we have some fresh air hosing that's going to be routing through the cab up into the trunk bay. I've got some of it mocked up out there. You can see some block offs I've had made up to block off that area. And then speaker and dash vents over here. And then also our windshield wiper assembly. We'll go over that piece by piece. Okay, let's start with our smuggler's box. Get out there and have some fun. Okay, so we're back out here at the car. Let's just take a quick look and see what our trunk bay area looks like before we start closing it up. So we got our lid here ready to go. You can see by putting that in there first, we can have a little bit of area to work off of. Cover this up with something, some kind of protection, and have a little bit of a work surface. Also, you can see up under the dash there, we've got quite a bit of wiring. Switches need to go in before we start closing off the front section with our windshield wiper motor assembly and plenum. Also, you can see here, we've got some fresh air ducting coming through there. That's 50 millimeter hose, and that's real tight, getting those in there. We'll go over that here in a little bit. Also, that's where our fresh air block-offs will be going. And then one other area we're going to go over in great detail. I don't know if we'll be able to cover it in this video, but this whole area here where the windshield wiper bottle goes, the horn relay, we've got the windshield wiper motor squirter that's going to go down in there. Also our battery. Everything here is so tight for space. I've actually had to rework all this. I pulled out my original battery tray, relocated it, and I'll show you exactly what the problem is with that area. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with our lid here and see how that goes. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do here, you can take a look at the shape of our brass pins. So these are the originals I pulled out of there. Originally it looked like they just cut them with some wire cutters, a little bit ragged on the end. So what I did is file this end flat so I could tap against, and then put a little bit of a bullet shape on this end. So as we drift it in there, it shouldn't hang up on anything. I'm going to put a little petroleum grease on these guys and tap her in. Let's go ahead and do that, see what that looks like. So first thing we want to do, we want to take a real pointy file and run that through the areas where our pins are going to go through. One thing with the Germans, when they make something with tight tolerances, you have no room for forgiveness at all. It's perfect. So a little bit of buildup in paint, a little bit of dirt in there, anything, it's not going to go. Okay, so we got that run through, that in location. And just running these through dry run already, I'm finding that they work best coming in from the outside, not the inside. I think this area is pinched off here. I don't know that for sure, but I can't get them started here at all. So I think they're meant to drift in from the ends. Alright, right there. And then on this side, we don't really have any room to put a nail set or any kind of tooling, so I'm just clamping down with some small vice grips and hitting the vice grips. Alright, there it goes. And then when we're getting in close, we'll just finish it off. These pliers. Boy, something so simple. It's a lot of tooling to get through that. Okay, so she's in now, working real good. Don't have any squeaking. Let's go ahead and open this guy up. Alright. Our pins in there. Okay, and then I thought I'd just show you this here for fun. So that lid and those two pins, 1 hour to put that in there successfully without damaging those pins. And this is all the tooling I drug out. Tried different things, various different angles, how to grab onto them without hurting the pins, and also the surrounding paintwork. So yeah, sometimes the simplest thing can just take forever and drag out half your toolbox. Okay, so let's go ahead now. Let's go ahead and do the emergency flasher switch. That's going to tuck in under the dash up front. So here's a close-up look at our emergency flasher switch assembly. This whole thing has been gone through. All the knobs and escutcheons on the dash have been shot with a base coat clear coat, and also you can see our clear lens on that has been re-clear coated to freshen that up. So it gives it a real fresh new look. And then also our original label here, you can see it's actually like a real thin metal foil on there. And so I cleaned the backside off, all the old adhesive, with a little bit of acetone, being careful not to get any on the front side there. So what I'm going to do to stick that back on there, I'm going to use some Scotch two-sided adhesive, stick that on the backside there, stick it on the dashboard, and then run our switch through. So let me go out there, get that adhesive on there, and see what that looks like. So I've got the adhesive stuck on there. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to run a one-sided razor blade around that edge and on the inside, and very carefully, hopefully not damage that foil, and trim off the excess. And then installing our switch, we're going to bring it down through the top of the speaker opening there. You can see the center area. We're going to bring it in from the back side there. And then from this side, just pull it through. And then also we got our dash plugs already put in location there. Okay, so our housing is going to come in from the back. Then on the decal, we're going to stick our little thin washer there. And then our escutcheon is going to tighten down on our washer. Then once everything's snug, then we'll go ahead and push the knob in. And then let's just take a real good look at our wiring here before we get it in place, because it's going to be very difficult to make out what's what once it's in place. So looking at it from the back, let's call K the top there. You see the rivets there. So that'd be white, red, black, white. You're going to have brown, which is your ground, on the lower right corner, and yellow, your lower left corner. Okay, and then our knob just presses in all the way and then tightens down, screws down tight. Alright, I guess that's it. Alright, and then looking at it from top view from our speaker hole. Okay, and then from under the dash here, you can see our wiring plugging in there, and then how everything comes out of the harness. There's one pigtail coming off that end there. Okay, next thing we want to do, while we got some good lighting going here, let's put our flapper in. This is going to go up in this section up in here. Real difficult area to work in, and a very specific way that cable runs in there and works with the lever on the dash there. So let's go in the shop, take a look at that, see how that breaks down. We'll start putting that in piece by piece. So here's a close-up look at our flapper after I've done the best I can really restoring it to somewhat usable condition. So what happens with these guys, it looks like from the factory they have some kind of a plastic rubberized coating on these to begin with, and it just dries out, cracks, and splits over time. So I used a plastic coating to coat both sides with, and then when that dried I used our seam sealer, which has got a really good rubberized texture and some good flexibility to it, and just kind of filled in the ends here. It has some splits and cracks in there, and if you don't fill those in you could get some whistling as air is coming up through there. So this particular thing is not one of those tight tolerance fits like everything else is on the car. It does have a little bit of free space around it, and that could be because the piece has shrunk down over the years, or it could just be the way it's designed. However, not able to get another one of these at all. So you're going to have to do the best you can to restore the one you got. So what happens is these dowel pins go in the end here, all right, and it's got this rubber push-in expander. I'm just using it and stopping from our original marks on there. You can see where it used to be, and that keeps a spread on this and a predetermined amount of resistance as it turns in the flapper. And then our screws go in into the cowl, up into our dashboard there. And that's pretty much how that installs. I got some synthetic grease lubed up real good on the insides of our shafts here, and also our cable. I've lubed this up real good and pulled this wire through several times. I'm using petroleum grease in there. None of this is going to work at all unless you use lots and lots and lots of grease. So let's take this out there. I'll show you what I know about how to put it in there. Maybe there's a better way to install it, but I'll just show you what I found out after a half a dozen tries. Okay, so just taking a quick look at our work area here. So this is one area you're going to have to be a little bit comfortable to work in. Really advisable to put this in with the gas tank out of the car and all this other hardware out of the way. So the first piece we're putting in here is going to be the cable, and it's got a pre-bent configuration, as you can see. And so what's going to happen, that's going to go through the front area here where I have my screwdriver. There's a hole in there. I can't get the camera to focus from here, but let's go inside underneath here and see where that's going. So the screwdriver comes through. There's a tube passing out the front there, and then here's the chamber where our flap's going to go and install. You can see the open end down there. That's where the dowel's going to go on the one end, and then towards me on the other end. And then you can see where the screwdriver would pass out the back there. That's where the cable is going to pass through. Let me go ahead and get that set up in there, and I'm going to take a look and see what that looks like. Okay, so that's just for starters. So that's going in. You can see the tube that's running in there. I've got as close as I can get in there for you. Look up underneath here. Okay, you can see the cable now coming through there, out the back there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that all the way through until the knuckle actually comes out in the flap area. Okay, you can see the knuckle there just hung up on that edge there. So I got to push that through that hole and get that in the flap area. Okay, I got to pull it completely through there, and then now you can see inside the chamber there, the knuckle is coming through there. So I'm going to pull that down, straight down now, and I'm going to hook the flap onto it. Okay, so if you follow the cable from the back of the cable through that tube, straight on down, and then we hook it under the flap, that's the position the flap's going to go in before we lift it up into that cavity and put our dowel pins in there. I'm running a little tight for space here to show you all this. Let me just push that up in there. I'll get the dowel pins position and we'll take a look at that. Okay, so I got my dowels in place there, and you can see the flap is now in where it needs to be. I'm going to go ahead and set those in all the way and then put my screws in there, and that should be good enough for that. Then we can pull on that cable and see how that works. Alright, so here's a look at our sleeve. So this is going to be the front section. This is going to go into the flap area, and a little retainer pin going to slide over that. And then the inside, I want to lube that up really good. I'm using a small gauge copper wire loaded up with grease and just snaking it through there back and forth several times just to really lube that up inside. This side here is going to mount to the body and then tie off with our dash switch. Okay, so we got our cable pulled through there, and then you can see where it hooks up to the top there. There's a flange that slides over, and then that little groove there, that's where our locking key slides in there, holds everything in place. Okay, finishing up with the flap then. So we've got this end seated and locked down with our key. Our flap's in location now, and then you can see that cable is going to run around, and we're going to tie off. It's got a clamp that holds it right here, and then our cable there is going to hook onto our dash switch. Let's go ahead and have a look at that dash switch and get that guy set up. Alright, so here's a close-up look at our dash switch assembly and all the various bits and pieces go with that. So how this works, this has got a two-piece mechanism. This is the stop. This drops over this guy here like so, and then it turns and hits against, you can see the stop there. Got one on this side and then one on the other side, and that's the positive stop for open and close. And then this guy slides over the top here like this, and when that's moving inside the trunk, cable's hooked through here. Once that lever is turning that's what actually opens and closes the flap. So to make this work really good, you really need to just sand up the inside. There might be some grooves in there from some wear and tear on it. Also, this particular one here, this had an ear broken off on this side here. You can get it to focus here. So I put some JB weld in that area, built it up, let it harden up real good, and then filed it down and reshaped it, and then sanded it up with some 2000 grit on the inside. And that seems to be working real good now. So now we've got something to hold it down. And what that little ear is for is to hold this retainer clip in place. So let's put a little synthetic grease on this assembly. We'll take it outside, and it'll make more sense as we put it together. Alright, so working from the inside of the cab here is probably the easiest, so I can reach through my gauge holes here and help me pin that in there. So I had to use a small miniature radius file just to file out all the excess paint that was sitting around that rim there. The fit that goes through there is so exact that any buildup in paint at all, it's not going to go in. So I have to make sure that's all cleaned off. So what I'm doing, I'm just taping the assembly together. I'm going to bring it up through the hole just like that. And that little squared off end in the back there, that's the piece that's going to go in the notch right in the back there. So let me tape that up in there and see what that looks like. Alright, a little masking tape there helps hold that in position while we're working with it. And then as you see, we come up through the top there. Both pieces come through at the same time. And then also you can see our cable there is now secured to that stick-up tab there on the body. That's fastened off. Okay, let me lay out the bracket that goes on there, and then there's a right order for the spacers and the washers. So we got our brackets sitting on top of there. You're going to want to grease the top and bottom, also the cam slotted area, and the hole that the two studs come up through there. Everything is in constant motion, so good lubrication there will probably help save your switch. Also, take a look at the height difference between the cable coming out of there and actually where it pins in right to this guy here. It's hard to believe that you can have this much of a drop and have that work, but that's apparently engineered to work proper in that kind of a drop there. I'm going to stick a picture in here of what it looked like before I took this apart, just so you can see what it looked like. And then next we go ahead and slide our retainer clip in there. Alright, so I run into a little bit of a problem here with our press nut, so let's take a look at the inside of what one of those looks like. Kind of a star configuration, and really these are designed to be pressed on one time in one direction and then stop. To peel this off of here and then try and reuse it, It's iffy at best. So I don't know where I can get some press nuts exactly this size with some red beauty caps. I probably can't get any, but I'm going to have to find some kind of a press down star type washer to hold this assembly in place. Those are just not going to work. I got this one in the back there, sort of on there, good enough to hook up our cable and at least see this actuating, but I'm going to have to spend some time researching that, probably 2 or 3 hours driving around town just looking for a little tiny washer. Okay guys, so I took a little break and went out, did some shopping, and show you what I found here to get through this problem. So first thing I did is I pulled the press nuts out of the red cover caps. One of them's got a crack in it, that's why that one wouldn't work. This one could be reused, however it's been expanded, maybe a little bit on the weak side. So I found some new replacement 1/8 inch press nuts. These are pretty strong, but they're just a little bit tiny, too small. So what I'm going to do, just flare them out with this awl until we press down over this flange, just the right amount of pressure fit there. I think I can get those to work out, no problem. The other problem we have here, well, wrestling with all that, I ended up breaking off my little repair job here. As you can see, not much adhesion area to cement onto. So really what we need to do to get through this and not have any future problems with it, this needs to be cemented in location. So I've cleaned it up real good, got all the grease off of there, and I've sanded up this area here, right here on the seat and on the side. None of this is going to move. This is actually a fixed point. So I'm going to use some of this black seam sealer. This stuff is like a miracle cure for many problems on your restorations. And I'm going to cement this in the dash, let it dry for 24 hours. Guaranteed that's not going to come out. Also, if I need to get it out, I can cut the rubber and pull it out of there in the future, but it will definitely get us through a problem. Problem with this piece here, it's just too rickety. And on this side of the pin, when I work the lever, you have a leverage problem, and that's why that broke there. So we're going to always have a leverage problem there. Even if I replaced this from something I find on eBay, it would still be 50 years old and probably would end up breaking there again. So let's go ahead and put that together, and while that's dry, we'll move on to something new. Alright, so hopefully moving on to something a little bit simpler. So this is our replacement speaker from Porsche. Real simple to put in. Comes with a set of speed nuts. You just press those down into the dashboard, followed up with a replacement Phillips screw, and just 4 of those. And only thing we have to do here is just make sure our connections are pointing towards the front of the car. Alright, then we just tap those in with a plastic hammer. And then setting our speaker in with the connections forward, being careful the magnet doesn't drag it towards the car. Pretty powerful magnet on there. Okay, and then we just run our screws in. And then our screws are going to need some washers, which do not come with the kit. The hole's a little bit big there for the head of that screw. Right there. Right there. Alright. Alright, real nice looking speaker there from Porsche. Very simple to put that guy in there. So now we got that in. We got our warning signal flasher assembly in there, our dash plugs, also our pin in the neck, vent flap switch drying overnight. So let's go ahead and while that's drying, let's go ahead and put one more simple install in here. Let's go ahead and put the plastic dash vents in place. Those just have some press-in fasteners. We can put those in there, and then we'll come back at it tomorrow and finish up the dash vent flap. So here's a close-up look at our original plastic dash vents there. Still in really good condition, just cleaned up, and also our original fasteners. So those just press on to the vent, and then the vent presses down into the dashboard. Alright, so we're just basically seating it in position here. All these guys are down in their holes, and we'll just go ahead and give it a tap. Alright, I think that's going to do it. Alright, so that's a real simple one there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to wait till our dash switch dries overnight. Then I'm going to come out in the morning, roll through it one more time, make sure everything's functioning 100%. Once I got everything where I like it, then we'll go ahead and take a look at her. Okay, let's take a look and see how she dried up overnight. Alright, that seems to be nice and snug. Definitely not going to move around now. Look at the inside here. And then having a look from this side. So I'm also taking a little bit of that seam filler up onto the back edge of the retaining clip there, just so we don't get any movement out of that one. Okay, let me go ahead and assemble this and we'll see how it works. Okay, so we got everything hooked up now. Everything's fully lubed. And even though we got a lot of leverage, a lot of torque on this left side here, you can see that that's not going anywhere. I have no more problems with that for the remainder of this car's life. Let's see the lever down here. Nice and smooth. And down our flap, opening and closing. Alright, real happy with the way that one turned out. So the only other thing you can do to help smooth this system out and make it work a little bit better, which I didn't show you, if you go back to one of the earlier clips, you'll see the cable laying on the bench had a little bit of a sharp end to it, a little bit of a kink in the line there. That shouldn't be in there. How that got in there, I have no idea. Maybe it could have happened when they were installing the system at the factory. It could have been through some servicing at some point. Maybe I put it in there when I took the system apart 3 years ago. I don't remember, but it wasn't that difficult to take apart. However, that shouldn't be in there. That cable needs to have just a nice, smooth, gradual slope to it for your best performance. So as you can see by this video, some of the smaller things can take the most amount of time and require lots of patience. You can end up doing it over and over and over and over again until you're just sick of it. But eventually you'll get there. No matter what's wrong, no matter what seems impossible, there's always a way. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on part 2.